Welcome back to another draft on Arena with Mike. I am joined today by our good friend Jeremiah Johnson. Say hi, Jeremiah.
Hello, everyone.
So we are jumping into this draft. This is the third video, fifth draft when Modern Horizons came out. So this was still last month before the ladder reset. So far we have a Teamer Eldrazi deck and a Simic, mostly Eldrazi deck.
Okay.
On our resume. So this will be the next draft after that. So we open up the pack, and what are we looking at? Not great rare that we're just gonna let go right by us. Let's see. The dual-faced lands, the Bridgeworks Battle, and the Pinnacle Monk are both reasonable considerations. The Brood Scale is another pretty good pick. At this point, I've drafted green multiple times in a row. So I kind of want to get out of that just to see what the other decks feel like. But, you know, when the packs give you green cards. One thing to consider is letting the people to my left fight over these green cards, because we are passing a couple decent ones, and ultimately that's what I decided to do. Take the Azorius energy card, pass two very good green cards, and let people to my left fight over it.
That
And
makes
maybe don't jump into it again. Also, like I said, third draft, I'd like to get a different archetype besides, you know, green-based Eldrazi.
Yeah, it's always good to have variety.
It is a very good archetype for what it's worth. But so
I
this pack,
personally enjoy Eldrazi.
sure. So this pack, the considerations are both of the dual-faced lands. The Razorgrass Ambush, we took a white card first. The Rush of Inspiration. We ultimately picked the Rush of Inspiration, mostly on the back of it just being a card that plays better with the energy than the Razor Verge. But both of them would have been completely acceptable. Here we're looking at the Hexgold Slith or the Fanged Flames. Jeskai is reasonable, but yeah, I like this. Just take the Hexgold Slith. If we can beat two color, we'd rather be two color. But then this Ral and the Implicit Maze following up, I wish I had taken the Fanged Flames.
I understand that.
But so yeah, this card is just significantly more powerful than something like a Tune the Narrative. We can take the Tune and just stay on color, and you can see me kind of waffling back and forth. Do I want to be disciplined and stay on color, or do I just want to take the more powerful card? And I believe ultimately I decide to take the more powerful card.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would have done too.
So, now the Rush of Inspiration can be a red card or a blue card here. So realistically we have the white card in Hexgold Slith, and then the Rush and the Rals that can be blue, or the Rush and the Riddlegate Gargoyle that can be, or Rush and Ral that can be red, or the Riddlegate Gargoyle and the Rush that can be blue.
Okay.
So we still have some options here as to which direction we want to slide into. We're not like purely Jeskai. So
Yeah, we're not completely dedicated at the moment.
yeah, so Serum Visionary being the best card in this pack doesn't necessarily play into the energy strategy, but just a good clean 2-for-1 lets you set up your next couple turns. Just a nice card. So this pack has a whole lot of nothing I really want. So
Yeah.
we can take the 2-drop mana dork that doesn't really help us. We can take the 4-mana white card, but that really cares about modified creatures, and if we're in the energy deck, that's
Not really.
yeah, it doesn't do
working.
much. The Hexgold Slith does turn itself into a modified creature if it does get that counter from hitting. But in general, the energy archetypes aren't always playing around with like counters or equipment or anything like that. That said, it was still the only like kind of playable card there.
Yeah.
So we have our choice between the Jeskai land or the Tune the Narrative here. Either of these is going to be significantly better than the Angel of Ruins. That thing is just way too much mana. Sometimes you have it on your top end, but and we're going to keep going with the energy cards here. as many of these as we can get. I want to try out the energy strategy anyway.
Yeah.
So. Demon Fear, the only playable card here. Again, we do have a landscape over there, but the energy deck isn't particularly interested in colorless mana.
Yeah, it's really nice.
As opposed to like the Eldrazi decks, where you want to pick up a good handful of landscapes to make sure you can cast your fourth color of cards, or whichever color in the colorless stuff itself. Our rare is bad enough that it wheels, so we throw it into our bulk bin. Just a bunch of trash. We're reading this card probably for the first time ever at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sure doesn't do anything. Into the sideboard. Realistically, we're taking it there just because it's a white card, and if we want to be in a white deck, even if it's not a playable card, we want to cut it off just to show that white cards are not going to keep going around the table.
Yeah.
That helps us out in pack number 2 when we're getting past cards. If the person to our left notices that they are not getting white cards, then they are more likely to pass them through to us. And that's a thing that we've talked about in previous drafts. You know, make sure you cut off a color so that you get rewarded in pack 2. So here we have Heragast, which is a very large dumb dragon. A perfectly serviceable card, like 6/6 with flying. Giving your other creatures a merge is okay. Realistically here, and then the Eldrazi line breaker, but again, we're trying to avoid the colors. Realistically here, Scurry of Gremlins and the Fanged Flames down on the bottom are the two cards that we're very interested in, and Scurry of Gremlins, I don't know if I realized it, like, at this point. You can see that I'm reading the card pretty intently here. Scurry of Gremlins is nuts. Like, this card is absolutely bonkers in this limited format. It both gives you a pile of energy, gives you a giant payoff for your energy, and just, this card goes so hard in this format.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
I did take it, so yeah, even if we're a blue-white based deck, we are perfectly content to splash for the Scurry of Gremlins, even if we don't ultimately wind up splashing for the Rattle and the Implicit Maze.
Yeah.
Just a solid 2-mana blue flyer here. We do have at least one Serum Visionary. We have the Rush of Inspiration, so we have a couple ways to trigger it and get some Eldrazi off of it. Realistically, mostly useful just for being more mana on turns where we need more mana.
Yeah, because isn't that the one where when you draw your second card, you make the Eldrazi?
That's correct, yes. So yeah, we'd be perfectly content to pick up some more Serum Visionaries. Other than that, you know, there's a handful of things that draw cards, but not too many that we'd be looking too hard into. I think here we're just going to wind up with that landscape down on the bottom, the Sheltering Landscape. Unless I rare draft just for the sake of drafting it, but I'm not playing that Crabomination there. Yeah, this landscape is in fact a dual land for us. We're taking it. Best 2 cards in this pack are both energy cards, but they're both Boros cards, which is a little awkward since we're pretty heavily committed to blue specifically. You know, the Conduit Goblin is an exceptionally good common in this format. Some of your most aggressive starts and some of your best starts are usually on the back of that Goblin, giving your 3-drop haste. So we take the Goblin there, you know, again, just because it's the best card. We probably take the Shrews over the Meddler, but the Meddler's pretty good. Meddler's a nice top end. The fact that it's a cast trigger to stun something, tap something and stun it, means if you are on an aggressive start, you just have a Meddler at the top end, and suddenly your opponent tries to set up a turn to block, and you can stop them. But yeah, I think the Unfathomable Truths, we're not a tremendously aggressive deck here, and just grabbing the Unfathomable Truths, just draw 3 cards, solid card, and follow that up. We got a, pick 6 Emissary of Soulfire, and that's the one where you can pay energy to put exalted counters on your creatures.
Okay.
So, certainly leans into the not going tremendously wide. You know, if you're putting the exalted counters out, it's because you have one creature with evasion of some sort. Taking the landscape over the the Dog Umbra there, I think more just because we're looking at the cards that we have and realizing that we might be stuck with 3 colors rather than being a solidly 2-color deck.
Yeah.
And the Dog Umbra is fine, but just being able to fix my mana is starting to be a concern at this point. You know, we're halfway through pack 2, and up until the last couple picks, we only had 1 piece of mana fixing.
Yeah.
So, tail end of the pack, nothing we're really looking to play here. Just, you know, deciding which thing to throw into our sideboard, really. Giving this thing a good old second read before realizing that it's going in the bin. So, compared to our previous couple decks, this one is, I think, a little bit less powerful, so far at least. The Eldrazi strategy, at this point, I know is a more powerful strategy, but more importantly than that, this one's kind of like dragging my mana around.
Yeah.
I have different colored gold 2-drops, which just makes my life a little bit more awkward than I would like it to be.
I get that.
And so we're just kind of like throwing cards in the sideboard here, not trying to play any of these. We're just getting the late picks and throwing them in the sideboard. Hopefully, pack 3 gives us some kind of a good rare, and we do in fact get paid off with a Satya here.
Oh, that's good for the energy.
Yeah, so not only is this a good card in an energy deck, but it's just, we are already Jeskai. So opening up a Jeskai Mythic, you know, it's one of the commander cards. But opening up a Jeskai Mythic when we are already kind of dedicated ourselves to having a Jeskai mana base feels pretty okay. We also have some reasonable things to be copying. You know, anytime we're copying a Riddlegate Sorcerer or a Hexgold Slith, they're basically paying the energy themselves with the ETBs for the new copies to make sure that we get to keep them with Satya's trigger. So,
yeah.
Yeah, we still want the Scurry of Gremlins. We have a couple lands here with the Suppression Ray and the Rush of Inspiration. And we get a second pick Galvanic Discharge here. We've passed 1 or 2 of these this draft, I think, because we were trying to lean closer to blue-white, but at this point with, you know, the Rouse, the Satya, the Scurry, Conduit Goblin, like, we are just a 3-color deck, and we just kind of have to accept that.
Yeah.
So Galvanic Discharge, it being one of the best cards regardless, is kind of what we're looking for here. This pack has Envoy of the Ancestors, this Hope Ender Coatl here, there's a Nyxborn Unicorn down there, and a Dog Umbra that are all pretty reasonable, and then behind that is the Conjurer and the Spirit and the Skoa, which are all like middling players. Like, you can play them, but they're like in the deck half the time, cut them half the time. In this case, I just wanted a little bit more interaction. We were a little light on like removal and everything, so just taking the Hope Ender Coatl here so that we have some kind of interaction, plus another evasive body, since, you know, we've got the Emissary of Soulfire with Exalted ability, so like having something evasive to kind of get the punch out of that Exalted matters.
Yeah.
I think this pick is also pretty close. The Pinnacle Monk, the Hexgold Slith versus the Area Auxiliary. You can see that Draftsmith wants me to, or thinks that the Pinnacle Monk is a little bit of a higher pick. I ultimately went with the Hexgold Slith, though I think the Area Auxiliary has a lot of merit as well. The thing that I'm concerned about is that I already have a couple like pretty good 4-drops. And some high impact 5-drops as well, and I'm not sure that I want my curve to kind of get slammed up that high. I also really could have used another 1 or 2 2-mana creatures. Up until this point, I had the 1 Slith, the Messenger, and then the gold cards that are both different colors, Riddlegate Gargoyle and Conduit Goblin. So just having another Hexgold Slith, so that for curve considerations made more sense to me than taking another 4-drop. Here we've got a Skittering Precursor that we're probably not playing. For some reason, Draftsmith has this black-green land highlighted. Yeah, so
That
if we
makes
weren't
no
going to play
sense.
any of it, we just take the fetch land. Just grab the rare. Tempest Harvester is another energy card. The Nyxborn Unicorn being a solid bestow creature, avoids 2-for-1s,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. The Mentor ability turns my creatures into modified creatures, which, I had something that cared about that, but I don't even remember what it was, if I'm being honest.
Something we cared about. What? Modifier creatures.
Yeah, so here's basically two quote-unquote removal spells that I get to choose from. Demon Inferior versus Utter Insignificance. I like the Demon Inferior here. We do have at least the one Serum Visionary and a couple other ways to draw cards. So if we can ever make that card cheaper, then it's worthwhile. Here we get the Unicorn on the wheel, so we get to take another 2-drop creature that's, on color. Expel the Unworthy here, not a great card, but it is another piece of removal, which, again, we could use. Third Demon Inferior versus a rare draft. We're just going to take the card that we might play. And that was the... I can't think of the name of it. Tap it, bounce one of your own cards, do this only during your turn. There it is, Essence Reliquary. I gotta be honest, in more recent drafts, I've kind of come around on that card. That card, looks almost unplayable at a glance, but there's some really cool synergies because of the timing on that card. You can't do it on your opponent's turn, but you can do it at instant speed on your own turn. So one of the neat things you can do is you can play your Accursed Marauder when it's the only creature you have, and then in response to each player sacrifice a creature, you bounce it back to your hand, and then suddenly it's just an edict for your opponent, and you get to do that again every turn until your opponent stops you.
Well, that's hilarious.
You can bounce anything with an ETB trigger. You can bounce a land if you're going to miss your land drop after you float a mana. You can bounce some of your living weapon equipment that aren't attached to anything just to create a new body. The card's really kind of come a long way in my eyes from where I had it initially. That said, this deck in particular is not a deck where I want it. Just amusing that it was a last pick in this draft, and nowadays, not quite a month later, and I don't think that card would be a last pick kind of a card. So what are we looking at? 5, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 lands with two modal dual-faced cards. Curve goes up to 5, looks pretty reasonable. Those Demon Inferiors are functionally 3 drops. They cost 1 less, and your draw step counts. And there's a sorcery, so you have to have drawn a card on your turn.
Yeah.
So they're functionally 3s. So, yeah, Draftsmith. This one was a little easier than some other ones. Draftsmith didn't really have much to work with here. This draft was kind of medium.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of playables sitting in my sideboard where we had a lot of considerations to make as to what to play, what to cut. The hardest part about this deck was going to be the mana, kind of no matter how we look at it. We've got double red towards our top end. We've got a full Jeskai card. We've got 2 drops that cost blue-white or red-white. So, realistically here, we're keeping this hand 10 times out of 10 because it has all 3 of our colors.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. We don't have anything to do, but we have all of our colors.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I think maybe I should have led on the Rush of Inspiration here. Just get that down as a land so that I have my red source. Looks like I'm going to wind up getting a little lucky here and just drawing the mountain, and at that point I'll just keep the Rush as a draw 2. But the question is do I want this Hexgold Slith? And right now, I've got a 2-drop that I can cast as long as I keep the mountain, but that's the only creature I have, so I think, even though the Slith isn't, the most impactful card here, I think I almost need to keep it just to make sure that I have a secondary body besides the Goblin here. So this is a top. We draw the red source, so we get to keep it. Next turn, we get to go double 2-drop. So probably Expel on the Springheart and Nantuku plus the Goblin and attack for 2 with the Serum Visionary is my prediction. Yeah, maybe not in that order. attack for 2. If our opponent wants to block, then we're totally fine with that. Yeah. Predictably no block, so. And here, yeah. Unfortunately, I let Auto Tapper do Auto Tapper things, and it decided that I didn't need that second white source to play this goblin. So now, instead of getting to play 2 cards this turn that impact the board, I get to play 1 card this turn that impacts the board, and then draw a card with Attune the Narrative, which is not what I wanted. So, hey folks, pay attention to Auto Tapper.
Yeah, it'll screw you over.
Now, one way to avoid that would have been just to sequence the other way. I could have played the goblin first, and then it guarantee leaves up a white source because it has to.
Yeah.
But regardless, it just feels bad to not have the thing in play that I wanted in play here. So, yeah. So now we have to basically decide this turn if, because our land comes into play tapped, we can't deem inferior and play our 2-drop, but we kind of got to get this 7/5 out of here.
Yeah, it's got to go.
So not having our 2-drop in play from last turn is really costing us here, because now here's another turn where we don't get to put it into play. So Auto Tapper, because we weren't paying attention to Auto Tapper. And make no mistake, folks, when Auto Tapper gets you, it's your fault for not checking. It's my fault for not checking. It's bad that it happens, but we could have done something about it, and we didn't.
Yeah.
So you can get mad at the client, but remember, at the end of the day, it's up to you to play the game correctly. So here we can play this Satya, which is fine. We get to attack for 3. We get to make a copy of a Serum Visionary, which helps us dig into our deck. We know that our opponent is drawing this 7/5 again here in a second. So, not excited, but it is what it is. And, yeah, so now we have an insignificant Satya. Which is fine, I guess. It's not good. Opponent did tap down, so they can't adapt their brood scale, so we can attack with this Serum Visionary here. Yeah. Hey, look, it's that 7/5.
It's back. How about that?
Hey, look, a fetch land. They get to trigger it twice. Isn't that great?
That's so awesome. I'm so happy for them.
Yeah, me too. I'd be happier for me if I had another 2/2 in play that should be here, but isn't. So, notably, Expel the Unworthy is, I'm not happy about it, but it's gonna get to clear this 7/5 here. We can kick it, they will gain 5 life, which is not great when I'm supposed to be aggressive, but I can't let that thing sit there. It is more of the same, where I'm just kind of not being able to deploy my 2-drops because of the threats that my opponent has, or I can deploy all of the 2-drops, but give my opponent another turn with the 7/5. Unfortunately, it's kind of a not great situation either way, right?
Yeah, it's not looking good.
Yeah, so I decided to take this turn to just advance my own board state. We know that we can clear the territorial color if we have to. With the Expel the Unworthy, we're just kind of hoping they don't get too much value off of it in the meantime. We couldn't stop them from getting this 1 extra trigger with their fetch land if they want it either way, so. Hunger Tide Rises. Sure. Yep. Flooding the board with small bodies. So, no good attacks here. We can expel the color just to get it out of here. We can deem inferior if we need to. but, like, that just... We're kind of sitting here asking for the same problem if we just deem inferior. They've already played it a second time. I'm sure they won't mind playing it a third time. So let's just get it out of here. We don't really have great attacks anyway, so not super worried about it. Yeah, I guess. We're trying to figure out if we can get an attack with this Slith in. We can pay the 1 energy to make it 3 power, which kind of commits us to attacking and paying 2 more energy to give it first strike. And then it's on our opponent whether, because they can just chump block with one of these insects. They can make an Eldrazi spawn with the Brood Scale and chump with that if they want to. Or they can just adapt the Brood Scale and then block with everything, or block with a bunch of things, just to clear the Slith. They choose to just take it, so I do ultimately get this counter on my Slith, so that's nice. I still feel pretty far behind this game. You know, taking so many turns to get my 2 drops into play just feels like I'm way behind.
Yeah, especially when that, what the hell's that?
The Hydra Trainer?
No, the...
Oh, the Goblin?
Yeah, the Goblin should about a couple of turns ago.
Yeah. So...
Sorry, my eyesight's not as good.
You're quite alright. So, they can adapt their Hydra Trainer here, making it a 3-3. Notably, that gives them a pair of 3-3s on defense, which gives us not really great attacks unless we kind of try to force things through. So here we're looking to bestow the Nyxborn Unicorn onto something. We can put it on the Slith, and what that lets us do is attack with the Slith and give it first strike, so that there's no good single blocks anywhere, or even really double blocks. And then we can also attack with, like, the Serum Visionary and mentor a counter over onto it, so that it at worst trades with a 3-3 if opponent decides to block. Now, this is all assuming that opponent doesn't have anything to interact with me, but, you know, like I said, I feel pretty behind this game, and maybe I'm just being impatient. Maybe I should just be kind of sitting back and waiting, but I'm not sure. So the Goblin makes me target. I don't actually want to use the ability here, though. I think the attack here should be with the Slith and the Visionary. Yep. And, yeah, nothing else. I can only grow one of my creatures with the Mentor counter. An opponent has what is functionally 2 3-3s in play. I do want to give the Slith first strike here, I think. Otherwise, it's a pretty easy double block for my opponent. Yeah. So now if they want to do anything, it's a chump, or at best a trade, depending on where they're blocking. And we'll go from here. We'll see what happens. So, bug. I'm very okay trading my Serum Visionary for 3 bugs. The Hex Gold Slith gets in again, which is another +1/+1 counter on it. That's just... Ultimately, that's just making it harder to block in the future.
Yeah.
They adapt the Hydra Trainer, which is kind of what we thought they were going to spend their mana on. That's the last bug from the Hunger Tide Rises. And then next turn, they'll be able to sacrifice some creatures to be able to find something threatening or scary. Though the fact that they triple blocked the Serum Visionary makes me think that they don't really have anything particularly large that they're looking for, because otherwise why triple block, right? That's 3 things they could have sacrificed to find a bigger thing. So Demon Worthy on my Slith, so it's gone forever. We're not looking to draw that again. So we played our land and then immediately let Auto Tapper catch us again, because we're just we're not off to a great start. The idea here was play the land first so that we could Unfathomable Truths, draw 3 cards, which makes the Demon Inferior cost 1, and then use the Demon Inferior on, like, the Hydra Trainer to get it out of here and reset our opponent's 3/3. We still don't have good attacks doing that, but we could have used our last energy, targeting the Unicorn to make it 3 power, attack with the Unicorn and the Goblin, and then they're both 3 power, and if the Hydra Trainer was out of the way, then we're kind of in a better spot. Instead, we tapped wrong. We let auto tapper tap wrong.
Yeah.
So now opponent can trade with both of our creatures if they want to.
Yeah. Which is what it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the good news here, this Hunger Tide Rise is about to pop, and there's only 2 creatures in play. And we did just draw 3. So, like, we have a pretty stocked hand. Our opponent is down to their last card. And the Hunger Tide Rises is, not doing anything particularly scary here.
Mm-hmm.
So, despite everything that we have done incorrectly this game, we're still, like, okay.
Yeah, we're still doing good.
So they would like a 2-drop. One of my favorite things about the Hunger Tide Rises, you can find the creature from your library or graveyard. So, at worst, this thing is just a regrowth sometimes, and that's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool.
So they choose to reanimate the Hydra Trainer. This Sage of the Unfavorable is not really doing anything, just, a 0/4 hanging out. Okay, so we've got some plays now. Emrakul's Messenger, Emissary of Souls. We'll save up this Scurry of Gremlins to where it's doing maybe a little bit more. We get 3 energy here. We don't get 3 energy here.
No, we don't.
That said, opponent did have to sacrifice their creature because they didn't have double blue up. So that wasn't great for us, but they are now empty-handed and have a Hydra Trainer that we don't care about as, like, the sole threat. So for the first time this match, or this game, I feel actually solidly ahead.
Yeah, I don't feel behind.
Now. We have the Scurry of Gremlins, which will help us close out the game very, very quickly. Opponent goes for an attack because they have a pretty free attack here. They can't block our Messenger anyway, so if they can't block, they might as well swing. So, so I want to say we just cast both of our spells this turn. Scurry of Gremlins, make 4 energy and some dudes. We can blow the energy right away while we know our opponent has no blockers and no way of stopping all this, which is +4 power. So 2, 3, 4, +4, 8. We get in for 8, put them to 5. And we can Demon Inferior the Hydra Trainer 2 cards down from the top or the bottom, their choice. And then they are quite literally top decking while at 5 versus 4 power sitting in play. And a Scurry of Gremlins, that means anytime I draw any kind of an energy source, it can potentially turn into a lethal attack. So, we are trying to close out this game quickly. So, I don't remember... Yeah, so I don't cast the Demon Inferior here. If opponent depending on what they draw, we can Demon Inferior whatever their better blocker is. And if they only have the Hydra Trainer, then we can Demon Inferior it next turn. Which, makes sense. We don't really have anything too big that we're drawing to, and the big things that we do have to draw to, Rouse and Suppression Ray over there, we can cast, so. We can actually cast them and the Demon Inferior. Yep. Opponent going digging. So, opponent impulses, find something that theoretically keeps them alive. Okay. That's a large fella. So, this is where we're happy we have this Demon Inferior. Yeah. we're just thinning here. We don't need this colorless. We don't need colorless mana for anything. So let's just get these lands out of here, and hopefully not draw land. We didn't draw land. That said, this creature doesn't really matter, but it is another flyer. So we deem inferior on the Hydra. Our opponent now has to... The top card of their library has to matter. We get to attack for 2. We could have attacked with everything, but they just get to eat a 1/1. They take 1 extra damage. And we're going to flash in this Coatl no matter what. So, they drew another good one. That's another territorial color.
Yep.
We're going to cast this thing anyway, so we might as well make them pay a mana, not that it really matters. And now our attack should be lethal. They have no cards in hand. They have nothing they can reasonably do in play. We attack with everything. One of the flyers is going to get through, and one of the gremlins is going to get through. So just save some time and attack all. The 0/1 obviously isn't doing anything, but it doesn't matter. It's a lethal attack.
It's there for inspiration.
Yeah, that's what he is. he just
complete inspiration.
Vibing with the party, just cheering them on as they go.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's got to be there to root for you when you cross the finish line.
That's right.
So yeah, despite playing not very well, we managed to kind of steal game 1 there.
Nice. When drafting like this, how many games do you play in a draft?
So the way Arena is set up, you play until you get your 3rd loss or your 7th win, whichever comes first. So
Okay.
minimum 3, maximum 9.
Okay. Yeah, I've not ever drafted on Arena, so this is like a whole new experience for me.
Okay, well,
watching this.
Hey, enjoy. In general, I'm not the biggest fan of Arena. You know, like we watched the auto tapper kind of make it so that the lines that we took in our head were not available to us.
Yeah.
That said, I do enjoy drafting on digital clients, especially because like the rules of the game are always enforced, right? Mm-hmm. You can't miss triggers, nothing like that. There's always been a conversation at high level Magic whether paper play or digital play is the way to go for a pro level event. Mm-hmm. And there are pros and cons to both. I think that the easiest and biggest con to paper is the ability to cheat or miss triggers. And sometimes one can be perceived as the other, whether it is or isn't.
Right. I can't tell you how many times I've missed a trigger on something that should happen.
Yes.
And
it just is what it is. It's your responsibility to know what your cards do. And
now, I've played Brawl on Arena before.
Okay.
And it's kind of like Commander, because I'm mainly a Commander player. So any of the triggers that I would have normally just overlooked happen, and I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, that's what I meant to do. Yeah, so one of the biggest perks of playing digitally is that your cards do what they're supposed to do 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Andrea Mengucci has one of my favorite phrases. He says sometimes things will go wrong in a game, or somebody will mention a line, and he'll say that only works in paper. Which is kind of his sarcastic way of saying it works that way because you can't do that, and until somebody tells you can't do that, that's totally what it does.
Yeah.
And just a silly little thing, but yeah. But with digital, you lose the ability to do a lot of things. Like you can look at a player, you can pick up tells. You know, you can kind of get an idea of what a player is thinking when they're sitting down right there across from you. And I genuinely enjoyed that aspect of Magic.
Yeah.
You know, just being able to talk and interact with somebody is one of the main reasons I got into the game in the first place. So the fact that you just blatantly lose all of that when you're playing in digital, just not my favorite feeling in the world.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
So right here we have the option to play the Satya. We can get in for 3, but we have nothing to copy, and our opponent is a black-white deck, meaning that they have access to good removal. So, like, just jamming this and attacking for 3 and then likely having our guy get killed is not... I'm not really vibing with that.
Yeah.
Now, our other options here, we can go double 2-drop. we can do nothing and hope that our opponent casts something that this Hope Ender Coatl snags. But we'll see how this goes. We can also flash this in as kind of an ambush Viper and block this Vampire. But again, opponent, very likely to have good removal here. So just flashing in a 2/2 and hoping for the best. They do nothing, so we're just going to play our bird. And now, what we can do now, they have all their mana up. We still have the option for the Satya line. We can still have the option of the double 2-drop line. At the end of the day, we're starting to get to the point where we're, rock, meet, hard place. We just haven't had spectacular moments this game to really commit and get ahead. So, we copy our dumb bird, or snake, or whatever it is. We get in for a small chunk of damage, and then we're going to end our turn and pay the 3 energy to keep our guy. We have the original Hope Ender that can trade with the Vampire if they don't do anything. The White Orchid Phantom having first strike means we don't have any good blocks there. And we're at 8, so we really kind of need to start trading off with the board, and our hand sure ain't helping us do that. So, there is an argument to be made that we could have... there is an argument to be made that we could have just double 2-drop there to make sure that we get something. As it was, we did manage to make sure that we got value out of our Satya, so that feels a little better than it could have. We're getting this trade here with the Vampire, and opponent did have to use a not terribly efficient removal spell on our creature that already made another creature for us. So we gain 4 life because of it. We get to put these bodies into play that we've kind of been sandbagging a little bit. And the board is mostly at parity, and we're up cards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we're just trying to be mana efficient here. Just use all of our mana this turn. We get into this attack for 4, because we gained the life and our opponent is only showing 2 damage. We're not overly worried about getting popped here. We're not going to win this race since our opponent was in the, mid to high 20s. But we do have time to do things, and the card in our hand is a draw 2. Plus, we have a looter in play, so...
Yeah.
Now we have, the biggest thing in play. Yep, Witch Enchanter shoots down our Unicorn. Witch Enchanter? Dad Enchanter.
The exact one.
Witch Enchanter has proven to be maybe my favorite modal dual-faced card in this set. It's very good. Land, tune the narrative is not really what I was hoping for. We take our 33% to get cracked there. We don't pay the energy, so we had to discard at random. Because we had 2 lands and a tune the narrative, so we were 66% to keep the tune the narrative. If we had gotten all the way bricked, it is what it is. Tune finds us our Onyx spell, we clear the first striker, and now we're in for some more damage flying. Opponent wants to use a kill spell on our bird, that's fine. And suddenly we're back to parity, but at least I have a looter, so... That's much better than my looter.
Yeah.
If I were my opponent, I would have attacked there.
Yeah,
I think, like, no problem at all trading my 2/2 for, my opponent's 2/1. Yeah, now I kind of have to just sit here and chump block this Gargantua. And if my opponent has a kill spell, I just die. So they get to adapt, they get to draw 2. If they find a kill spell, I'm dead on the spot. And if they don't find a kill spell, I'm still in bad shape because they have a 6/6 and I have nothing.
Yeah, it's not looking good for the home team on this one.
Yeah, so, we said a moment ago that we had that turn where we felt like we had pulled a little bit ahead. We got some favorable trades. And then we drew some extra cards,
Mm-hmm.
and almost all of the extra cards we drew were lands.
Yep.
And that's not really what we're looking for. So there's the removal spell, except our opponent doesn't have any extra black mana. So this could be worse for me. They didn't just kill my guy. I do get one extra turn. But anything I draw can't be a creature because that Accursed Marauder is just going to clear it if all I have is a blocker. This is a forced block here. I don't have a choice. We drew a Scurry of Gremlins, which would be good if, we had been able to be aggressive at any point this game. But unfortunately, we were not, and probably not good. And the opponent has an extra creature. We can play both. If we do, we get an extra energy. Opponent plays the Accursed Marauder. We have to sacrifice the Messenger. We are still stuck chump blocking the Gargantua. If opponent doesn't play the Marauder here, one thing that we can potentially do is triple block the Gargantua and activate the Scurry of Gremlins. Defensively, it does give +1/+0, as well as haste. So if opponent doesn't force the action on the Messenger, we can potentially clear the 6/6. That said, it still leaves us with, nothing in play and kind of fighting for our life, but just something worth noting. Yeah, so we go for this. Opponent can flicker the Gargantua with the Conjurer there. And just kind of cost me my energy. But if they're doing that, they're not killing me, and that's okay too. Because if they flicker the Gargantua, then, my guys don't die, and I still have them. That said, they get the Gargantua reset with the counters, so they can adapt it again and draw more cards. So, again, nothing good is happening here. Flickering the Witch Enchanter after we've already done the thing is a little strange to me. But hey, we got rid of the 6/6.
Hey.
Draw 3. Okay.
As
I'm not even going to blame Auto Tapper there. I just kind of, let it do its thing, and I happened to draw a white card, and it tapped my 2 white sources. That could have happened kind of no matter what.
Yeah.
So, I'm not even mad at Auto Tapper on this one. This one was just yep. I drew a card I can't cast. But at least we drew 3 cards.
Yeah.
I will note that 2 of them were lands again.
Yes, they were.
So I think we've looted away 2 lands. We have 8 in play, and we still have an extra 1 in our hand. So it's a lot of lands.
That is a lot of lands.
And one of our lands was the Rush that we cast as a spell. So, a lot of lands.
Oh, look.
Another land.
Let's see. Oh, look, another land.
Do I... I don't even want these Demon Inferiors, honestly. Yeah. What am I getting rid of? A 1/2? I don't care about the 1/2. Get rid of a Witch Enchanter? That also doesn't do anything. They can just replay it or sandbag it until something relevant happens. So, yeah. Demon Inferiors to the bottom. Now, when you just scryed 2 cards to the bottom, even though you're thinning your deck, do you bother cracking the fetch land when you know you don't want the 2 cards on the bottom? Because it just shuffles them back in if you crack it, right?
Yeah, it could put them right back at the top.
So, I haven't actually done the math on that. Somebody out there has. I know it.
Yeah. I feel like with my luck, it put lands right back on top, though.
Hey, look, our opponent drew a 5-drop that's better than the cards we've drawn.
Oh, I'm so happy for him.
I'm very happy for them. This game has been a slog. It's been a grind. Opponents played fine, so no hate. Yeah. This is kind of the downside of these, like, 3-color aggressive leaning decks. If you stumble, it's not great. Your mana can kind of misbehave sometimes, and that can lead to stumbling. In this case, we just draw a couple too many lands, but once again, that's just the variance of Magic, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's just going to happen. When you play enough games, you will flood sometimes, you will get screwed sometimes.
This is how it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't tell you how many times I've been playing a game and just hit a mana pit. Go to look at my hand or my next few cards after I've been killed.
Never look, Jeremiah, never look. So we're at 4. Opponent has a flyer. If they attack with this 2/2, it doesn't really matter. We would block, I think, but we crack the fetch and then realize that we have nothing to fetch. So, just A+ everywhere. We play Ral's Implicit Maze to clear the idiots, and then immediately lose to the flyer and concede.
Yep.
We needed that Ral's 73 turns ago.
Yeah, that would have been really nice.
Alright, so 1-1 and on to game 3. Okay, we have all 3 of our colors again, which, as I mentioned earlier, is almost explicitly my prerequisite to keeping a hand, with this deck in particular.
Yep.
We have no creatures. We draw 1 off of the tune. Perfect. We were on the play. We have a 2-drop on 2. We're living life to the fullest, baby. Notably, the Hexgold Slith pretty good at attacking through opposing 2-drops. Not 0/4s, turns out. So I have a couple choices here. I don't really want to just play the Nyxborn Unicorn as a 2/2. So what we could have done is what we did, the Expel, and just clear the thing, get a +1/+1 counter on our guy. We were trying to quickly go through combat and just clicked in the same spot, and unfortunately accidentally used 2 energy there to give our guy first strike that he didn't need. So if it comes up in 14 turns or anything that I need 2 more energy than I have, it's my fault.
It was misclick. It happens.
So I was saying there was a couple options. We could have also attacked with the Slith. They block with the 0/4. We don't get the +1/+1 counter, but then post-combat, we can utter insignificance the 0/4, which will make it die, because it will turn into a 1/1 with 2 damage on it.
Yep.
So we could have killed it with the utter insignificance instead of the Expel, but with the Expel being both a sorcery and a thing that, like, costs a lot of mana to scale into the late game, where utter insignificance can just, like, on turn 10 target a 10/10, and now it's a 1/1 for 2 mana at instant speed. I think we'd rather just use the worst removal spell first. We very carefully make sure we hit decline this time, so we don't use energy for no reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just letting this Slith kind of do its job. Opponent has shown us green and blue mana so far, which makes their predominant removal spell the Horrific Assault. So just getting this Slith as big as possible so that Horrific Assault is harder to use is definitely on my agenda. So I gotta be honest, I kind of want to hold on to this Suppression Ray. We have a big Hexgold Slith. We are in a reasonable position to be able to just kind of get our opponent dead if we can get them a turn where they think they're going to block, but then can't. So right here, we're giving our opponent the opportunity to block, because honestly, we'd prefer if they did. Not that we expect them to, but, give them the opportunity to make a mistake. They get in for 6. I get a counter. We're going to deem inferior the Void Claw here. Our opponent is seemingly strapped for mana, and denying them of their creature that acts as a soul ring seems important to me.
Yeah, that is very important.
This is now a 0/12. Yeah, they're just trying to put something into play to block the Slith. Notably, they left the Void Claw on top of their deck, which indicates to me that I'm correct about how much they really need the mana there. So,
I feel like this game was going a whole lot better than the last one.
yeah, some of that is because my opponent is missing land drops. Some of it is because we just have a creature that's going unanswered for a long period of time. So we do this, we get 3 energy. I think, we spend 4 of it to give all our guys power and haste. We get to attack with everything. They're obviously going to block the 8 power with the 0/12, but we do get a mentor counter over, which means if our opponent wants to save their spawn because they do want the mana, we're getting in a nice hit for 5, and if they throw away the spawn, we're okay with it. And then we get to clear our hand and their 0/12 by turning it into a 1/1. So this was similar to what I was saying about what we could have done with the 0/4 earlier, but 12 is a lot bigger, so we're happy to get rid of it.
Oh, absolutely.
So this Slith really just trying to go the distance. Our turn 2 creature just kind of trying to bring it home. Okay.
They surrender.
Yeah. The unicorn there making it really difficult for them as well, because every time we attack, we're going to be able to put a counter on one of the gremlins or another creature at some point. And that, now that their life total is so low, that Slith is lethal by itself. So they need to block it every turn of the game for the rest of the game, and it's going to continue to grow the remaining attackers. So, understandably, concession. We knew they were drawing the Void Claw, not a land, and that's a 3 mana 1/3 that's going to be forced to chump, and that's not really where you want to be. So, on to this game. Yeah, quest for the Necropolis versus... I'm going to crack a fetch land, I guess. Sounds good. Yeah, we did the thing where we kept our hand because it has all of our colors again. We have a turn 2 Hex Gold Slith again. And I'm just kind of reading this quest and kind of figuring out whether or not I understand what it does. Notably, Hex Gold Slith, not as good against the black decks. Wither and Bloom is a very, very good and powerful kill spell that is very good against the Hex Gold Slith. Would you like to redraw your Retro Fiend Transmigrant, opponent? I'm going to find out in a second. I don't actually know where they put it, but hey, we remembered to hit decline. Alright, they decided to put the Transmigrant on the bottom. We got in with our Slith, which gets us the counter that we're looking for. Makes it a little bit harder to block naturally. We have a kill spell in our hand. We have the Satya in our hand. And if we get to follow up here... Yeah, so if what we get to do here is slam the Satya, attack with both. We get to give the Slith that we're attacking with here first strike, so that the Gargoyle can't really do anything about it. And then get 2 energy from the Satya, copying the guy, get 2 energy from the guy coming into play, and if they want to trade with the token, that's fine, it just puts us up energy. And they don't have a good block on the original one that already has a counter and is about to get another one.
Yep.
So this is kind of as good as we could ask for. We had our 2-drop into clear the way with a removal spell into our, bomby, hasty mythic rare on the play.
That's really good.
It's
really good.
Really
good for our situation.
Yeah, and notably our opponent hasn't missed a beat here. They've played spell on turns 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
So
how did they get that just now?
It's a persist creature.
Okay.
So it used to be a 2/2, and now it is a 1/1 with flying. The Obstinate Gargoyle says that it has flying as long as it is modified.
Okay.
So the -1/-1 counter from the persist counts as a modification.
Because it's a counter.
Correct. Abstruse Appropriation on my Satya scares the daylights out of me. The good news is they only have white mana of their own, which means they need 2 colorless in order to get the to be able to cast the Satya.
Mm-hmm.
They need colorless to pay for the blue and a colorless to pay for the red, unless something changes with their mana. So. Here we could have played the Rowls, but like we're not really interested in that. I did it again, I think. I gave my guy first strike when I didn't mean to. I gotta stop being impatient. It's just me clicking too fast. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah. I can feel a little agitation with that move, though. With that last turn.
So we have Expel the Unworthy. So if our opponent plays just like one big thing, we can clear it. We have a land to discard to this pigeon. Refurbished Familiar is a zombie rat, and it has wings, making it a pigeon, as far as my brain is concerned.
Makes sense.
That said, this Rouse kills all of their creatures, so we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
That is what we're gonna do.
Definitely do that.
I also believe that I should, I don't know if I do, hold on to this island, because the quest over there, the quest for the Necropolis, is a reanimate, and they can just get the pigeon back. So if they get the pigeon back, I have to discard, and if I have to discard, I would rather discard the island than the Expel the Unworthy, because the Expel the Unworthy might be lethal.
Exactly.
The Expel the Unworthy is in fact lethal. Discard the island, get 2 cards off of the Rowls. None of this realistically matters. Here's this thing, clear your blocker. You don't have black mana, which means you can't reanimate. They say GG. We're just clicking buttons. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So yeah, 2-drop into get your thing out of the way into Satya proved to be good.
Yeah.
Hexgold Slith on the play, once again going unanswered and just being a large creature that's hard to deal with.
That is good.
Yeah. So, kind of the ideal case for what this deck is. You know, we've had our mana has worked out pretty well in all the games we've played so far. Here's another hand that has all 3 of our colors, so we're kind of priced into keeping this one. The downside being we're going to have 2 of our 3 lands are quote-unquote come into play tapped, because we really need this white mana on turn 2, so we have to go landscape on 1. So, if we want to play this Hexgold Slith on turn 2, which, as evidenced by previous games, we very much do want to do.
Yes.
We need to get the landscape down so we can crack it for a white, and then follow that up with an untapped land. So, assuming our hand doesn't change, the mountain, meaning that we don't have access to our 3rd mana on turn 3, which is a little awkward. We can't play the Emissary of Souls without drawing a land, or Emissary of Soulfire. But then, you know, better lucky than good, and we just draw the land and don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But our sequencing was based on missing the land drops.
Yeah. Playing
You know.
for the worst.
Yes. Yeah, and in Magic, sometimes that's how you have to play. You have to just plan for the worst case scenario. Like, what is the worst thing that can happen, and how can I mitigate how bad that ultimately is? And other times, you have to pretend like everything is going to go right, because if everything doesn't go right, you're going to lose anyway.
Yeah.
And kind of making that mental adjustment and understanding when you have to do one versus the other certainly helps over the length of a Magic career. So getting Aether Spiked here feels not great, but like it is what it is. Whatever we were going to play was going to get Aether Spiked. A little sad, but at least we get to grow the Slith.
Mm-hmm. Still get the counter.
Yeah, we still get the counter, which means our opponent can't really block here, which means we're going to get another counter. The downside being we also can't just get rid of this Void Claw. So unlike that previous game where our opponent was struggling with mana and we cleared their soul ring multiple times. This one ain't that. And yeah, we didn't clear their thing, which means they have a lot of mana now. They have up to 6 mana this turn.
Which makes me think like there's something really big in their hand.
Yeah.
I feel like something really big is coming really
Yeah,
soon.
it turns out Commander's not the only format where untapping with a soul ring is powerful.
That's crazy.
So yeah, 2 mana. Yup.
Yep, something big's coming.
What you got? Or 2 little things, to be honest. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
if your turn 3 is a Void Claw and your turn 4 is 2 3-drops, that's still quite good.
Yeah, that really is. Because that's field presence.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this is less than ideal for me, but not as bad as it could be.
Put it back in hand.
Yeah, kick the guy, put it back in my hand. That Herald's the End is a problem.
That is a whole issue.
So we're going to draw 2 cards. I would like to pay 2 energy to keep my whole hand. And then, yeah, we have land drops. We have things to do. We're going to 5 mana here, so I think what we want to do is get a threat down and leave up this Hope Ender Coatl. I don't know why I struggled with that word there. But, yeah, land for turn with the premise that if they do something that's relevant, we play the Hope Ender, and maybe we catch something here, though the fact that they have so much mana makes it less likely that the Coatl does something.
Yeah.
But not impossible. When you get to those big, large creatures and big, splashy plays, it's obviously pretty important to have the mana for all of that. So, generally speaking, you can't afford to wait until you have an extra 1 when you're casting 7, 8, 9 mana spells.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
So sometimes the Hope Ender, your opponent is just sitting there with 1,000,000 lands or 1,000,000 mana, and you're like, well, this is never doing anything. And then they cast something gigantic, and you're just like, oh, neat, I actually got to do a thing. So, we'll see. Opponent leaving up 1 here, which makes me think they are playing around specifically Hope Ender Coatl in this case. Like, they chose the 5 mana play and were very adamant about leaving up the 1 mana. In this case, I just want to get the body down, I think, so getting them to tap out. My attacks are already pretty medium, but it does kind of mean that they're not doing much. Like, if they attack me for 3 here, we're pretty okay with that. They choose not to. What I was hoping is that they would attack me for 3, and then I can suit up my Slith with the Unicorn, which then gets to mentor a counter over to the
Coatl.
To the Coatl, yeah. Yeah, so I here's this guy. I have more energy, I guess.
It looks like you were about to cast Unicorn, but then...
Yeah, I'm still about to. I'm not sure why I changed my mind as the order. I think it was just my way of making sure Auto Tapper didn't tap me out of all the mana I need to cast the...
That makes sense.
Cast the thing that costs 2 specific colors first, and then go from there. So we're paying the energy here to give us first strike, making our opponent's blocks kind of suck here. If they don't gang block, including it that heralds the end, then they can't clear my guy. And if they do block with it that heralds the end, we get to make sure that the first strike damage goes on it, which shrinks the other 2 to the point where I win combat.
Yep.
So they have no good blocks here outside of just chumping if they want to save some life. And we got to put the counter on the Coatl here. Notably, chumping also keeps me from getting the counter on my guy, which is worth something, I assume.
Mm-hmm. They apparently do not want your guy
getting large. Yeah, as we've watched the last couple games, Swift just constantly getting in there and getting counters makes the game feel much easier.
It does. It does. It's always nice to have Yeah, 6/5 on board.
Yeah, when your 2-drop is rumbling with Eldrazi's.
Yeah.
It's pretty alright. So notably, we've had the mana to cast this Unfathomable Truths for a couple turns, but we've just been trying to apply pressure. Opponent choosing to apply pressure here when we're kind of winning this life race. They have to have something. So here's the second Demon Inferior targeting the Hexgold Slith.
Wow.
We're going to choose to bottom it this time. Expel the Unworthy.
Question.
Yeah.
Why didn't you block the Herald's Dam with your 2/2 flyer?
Because they can't deal with my flyers right now, and I'm winning this race.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so right now that's 5 power worth of flying that I have access to. So we had the land rolled up in our hand, so we made sure that Auto Tapper left us with a white source. We have this Expel for the It That Heralds, which is worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 power.
Yeah.
So 2 mana, clear 6 power from our opponent's board feels pretty okay. We get in for 5 with the flyers. We can gain 3 life here if we want to. I don't have anything else to do with the energy at the moment, and I have the Slith to rebuy more energy. So yeah, presently we have a 2-turn clock for our opponent if they don't find a way to deal with the flying creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So, and while we are under pressure, like our opponent does also have 6 power coming at us, we are ahead on that race. Malevolent Rumble is fine. A bunch of lands and an Utter Insignificance. So the Utter Insignificance, unfortunately, is a way to deal with one of my flyers. So I assume that's what our opponent is going to take here. I can't imagine they want another land, yeah. So, like I said, unfortunately a clean way to deal with one of my flyers, which diminishes my clock. Certainly makes it possible that I lose this race at this point. I like this attack from my opponent. I can choose to chump the 3/3 here if I want to, but honestly I'd rather hold off. If I do decide I need to jump, I want to do it later. This is also nice. This is an extra chump blocker because I have the tune in my hand. Mm-hmm. So as long as I play the messenger first and then the tune, it'll immediately trigger the messenger, giving me the extra body. And God forbid we ever top deck Scurry of Gremlins with a board this wide. We get just a pile of energy off of that Scurry ETB trigger. So, notably this is also another flying body. Suppression Ray makes me feel pretty comfortable that I can close out this game quickly. So right here, I think what we want to do is attack with both of our flyers. If our opponent's going to Utter Insignificance one of them, it is what it is, that's fine. And then just play the Hexgold Slith and set up a lethal attack next turn. So if we hit them for 2 here, presumably, let's assume that they get the Coatl down to the ground and kill it. Yeah. I'm not going to pay energy here, I don't think. Oh, I guess I am. Sure. This just makes it that much harder for them to kill me on a crackback, but I don't think I needed to give anything lifelink this turn. But it's okay. So yeah, presumably they're going to Utter Insignificance this Hope-Ender no Coatl down to the ground. They can block it with just the Void Claw, or they can trade with it if they want to with the Brood Scale. Probably just block it with the 1/3.
Yeah.
They take 2 down to 7, but then we have 2, 4, 6, 8 damage in Grizzly Bears next turn with this Suppression Ray tapping down their team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So notably they floated mana with the Void Claw there so that they could also adapt the Brood Scale. That was actually a very good use of their mana. making sure to do that correctly instead of letting, like, if they had just clicked on the thing auto tapper, I guarantee would have just used both of their lands, and then they can't do the other thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, opponent at 7, making basically the play that we expected them to make, where our Coatl is in the graveyard, ultimately defeated. But we know that they're not going to get to chump block unless they can make an instant speed blocker. So, very risky for them to attack here into the board that we're presenting. The Unicorn here also, with the added benefit of being able to put a +1/+1 counter on one of these 0/1s, which means clearing one of our attackers is theoretically not enough if they happen to have a removable spell in hand. They would clear one of our 2-power creatures, and that would still leave us with 2, 4, 6, 7 exactly because of the Mentor. Thin out the deck here, grab a mountain so that if we top deck Rowls, we have it, though 3 of their creatures are 3 toughness, and it's almost guaranteed that we're just playing the suppression right here. Here's some stuff. I would like to present to you lethal.
I understand.
Are you dead? Notably, they do have mana up, and they do have... they only have 1 energy, though, which means an Aether Spike. They don't have enough. I can pay for the Aether Spike. But they could have... what's the flip one? There's a flip card that returns a spell to hand. They could potentially have that. They could have... There's a couple different things that they could have that would make me very sad here. But this is just asking them, hey, I am showing you lethal. Do you have a way to stop me from killing you? That card ain't it. But it does go digging. And notably, if they do stop us from having lethal, we do at least get to follow up with a Serum Visionary to set up our next turn and see if we can't present lethal for a second time. I believe it would be correct here to pay the energy and keep their Void Claw and the 2 3/3s tapped down. They can untap with the Battle Mage, and I don't care. I'd like to remove their ability to draw cards or make excessive mana with the Void Claw, and obviously the 3/3s block my 2-power creatures pretty well. So given the opportunity to put stun counters on exactly 3 things because I have 3 energy, those are the 3 that I think are the correct ones. In case they stop me from killing them.
In the event.
So, yeah. Here's me kind of debating whether or not, yep, pay all 3, 3/3, 3/3, Soul Ring. Yep. So, now we attack for lethal. This is, again, through a singular kill spell. Obviously, we can't pay energy for either the Slith or the Gargoyle, but that's okay.
Hey, he's not a cheerleader this time either. He's putting in work.
That's true. No cheerleader. The extra point of damage that we may or may not need. Yeah, so right here. Opponent has a Coatl, which they're flashing in, which will let them block, but because of the 1/1/1 counter from Mentor, we have exactly lethal through this.
Yep.
And this is kind of what we were trying to set up. So, hey, we did it.
Yay.
We did the thing. We correctly played around things and stuff.
Accomplished
Woo.
the goal.
Notably, that puts us to win number 4, which is functionally break-even. Drafts cost 1,500 gems. At the 4th win, you get 1,400 gems back,
Nice.
plus the cards that you drafted. So,
Okay.
while I don't really put much value on the cards or the packs personally, some people do. So 4 wins is always the goal.
Yeah.
If you can get 4 wins or average 4 wins in your drafts, that's slightly better than 50-50,
Yeah.
you're doing pretty okay. So we
Start-
didn't have a 2-drop to play, so just playing the Cascading Falls here, making sure we have all 3 of our colors lined up.
I'll say looks like it started with all 3 colors.
Yeah. Did we? Did we draw
we started with the flip
duel?
land,
Yeah. And then
you
one
had the island and the plains.
Perfect. So yeah, like I said, my prerequisite to keeping hands in this deck.
Got to have all 3 colors.
Really do. That said, we haven't drawn a spell this game. We might have drawn the Slith, but yeah, we're starting to draw more lands.
We got gremlins.
We do have gremlins, but they're not the best play on turn 4 when you didn't go like 1, 2, 3 before it.
Mm-hmm. They're not very helpful engines right now.
Yeah, Scurry of Gremlins, very worthwhile when you have bodies in play, and it's a giant energy bump.
Mm-hmm.
It makes energy for the number of creatures you control after putting 2 creatures into play. So.
Oh, what is this?
They are murdering my Slith and making me sad. But because the Slith is a 2/1, I could have responded with the Utter Insignificance, but dealing 1 damage to my 2/1 is still lethal, it turns out. And then Thraben Charm to clear my 1/4, and suddenly I'm taking 5, lost my entire board, and am sad. Taking 3, and yeah. Still very sad.
Yes, I understand that.
It was a pretty good sequence from my opponent. 2-drop into 3-drop into double kill spell.
That's just hateful.
It was good. I'm not mad at him.
I would have been.
Fair enough.
But that's me.
Yeah. So notably, the Utter Insignificance wasn't my favorite play, but just knowing that we don't really have much of a follow-up here, making sure that we don't get completely abused. Mm-hmm. Taking 3 a turn is much better than taking 5 a turn. We're at 14 instead of 10. So we get to draw 3 on our opponent's end step. Opponent has gone very, very wide, which is probably terrible for us. We have... Not good. Yeah. Yep.
All we did was make a dude.
Well, we drew 3 cards and made a dude. So yeah, we can go like 2-drop, 2-drop, leave up Hope Ender. Hope for the best. Alright. Well, we're not doing that, which means I really, really want to bestow the Unicorn here. Which is true. Anytime you have a bestow creature in your deck, if you're not getting the extra value by bestowing it and then letting it fall off later and be its own body, it's almost not worth having. Hey, look. Another kill spell. Oh, this is so tragic. It's so bad for me.
Oh, God. This is not good at all.
No. Our opponent is down to 1 card in hand, so, that's something. We're going to flash in this bird.
Well, I feel like you should block the Slith there.
It's a trade because they didn't give it first strike, but no, I think we just eat this 1/1 here. We take our medicine. This still does get a body out of play. The Slith grows, but it still only has 2 toughness, which means it dies to any combat, unless they're paying energy to do something. So,
gotcha.
We also have this Demon Inferior literally in our hand to get rid of it and reset it if we want to.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah. So, yep, let's do that,
exactly
I guess.
What's going on.
Nope, we changed our mind. We're thinking about stuff.
Thought about it for a minute. It's kind of flashing it like, hey.
I think what I did was I counted my mana and realized that I can't play Scurry of Gremlins and Demon Inferior this turn, which means I need to decide which 2 spells I'm casting this turn.
Yeah, still need 1 mana for that.
Yeah. Alright, so Demon Inferior, which means we're probably playing the Conduit Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I suppose, a crazy world out here where we cast a 4-drop by sacrificing our spawn.
Yeah?
But, I'm not sure I love that world.
Yeah, I don't think I would do that.
Well, so the issue is more that we know they have the ability to tap a thing, right? They have the jailer over there. I think Solstice Jailer, I believe is the name. Yeah, Solstice Zealot. They can pay energy to tap a thing. We're at 7, which is not a high life total. We don't really have good attacks, because if we're attacking, then we're getting beat up. Opponent left the Slith near the top of the deck, which is a little interesting to me. I guess they just want anybody because they're close to crossing the finish line here. So. Oh, that's bad for me.
Oh, that's not good at all.
So, they either top deck the Fangs or the land. Either way. And then they oops me, which is just like... Why the oops? Like, we were... Why people gotta be that way sometimes, you know?
I don't know. Some people just like watching the world burn.
Like, if that was their line, what line do I have that makes what I did oops, like I made a mistake? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It's just rude.
You're just playing the hand you dealt.
Just rude.
Start with colors again.
We have all our colors, therefore we're keeping.
I would start with the flip lane, though.
Okay. Go ahead.
Wait.
Tell me why.
Because it comes in tapped, and that
Yeah.
way, when you start your next round
Turn
2, you have 2 open mana
Uh-huh,
instead of just having the a tap one and.
There you
one
go,
open
buddy.
mana.
Good job. You see that I'm holding this card up, waiting to play it on turn 1. So
Yeah.
clearly I agree with you. Playing the tapped land on turn 1 lets us get down this goblin right away on turn 2.
And we got Satya.
Yeah, we have Satya rolled
Satya,
up.
yeah.
Very good draw step. We do need the 4th land,
Mm-hmm.
but that's fine. Accursed Marauder, kill my goblin. That happened. Here's a land. Here's a 3-drop. We have more energy. Pass the turn. So notably, we can choose to pay energy to put the exalted counters now, but like we don't know that we're untapping with our guy.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't untap with our guy, we don't want to pay energy.
Right.
Opponent has found a Writhing Chrysalis with 2 energy, which means we get to exile a Writhing Chrysalis, and that's probably great for us.
Yeah, that's right.
F that card.
Yeah.
Hexgold Slith is not a land.
Nope, but it is something we can play.
It is, but it is not something that we can, jam and make copies of Emissary or anything else that gets us energy.
Correct, but it does give us more energy.
It does.
For the time being.
Which is good. Anyway, we're going to use a bunch of energy to have some exalted counters now.
Gotcha.
You get an exalted counter. You get an exalted counter.
Just passing them out like candy.
Yeah. Now the question is do we want the extra one? And I kind of think the answer is yes. It lets us attack for 4 here. You know, and this is why Emissary of Soulfire is so good, right? Like that is a 1/4 that just attacked for 4 by spending my energy. So. So Refurbished Familiar. I will discard a card. I have no way of drawing extra cards. They have a flying creature literally in play, so this messenger is just kind of hanging out. Here's some, notably, still not another land.
But can't you put a
I sure can.
Then attack with.
So the question here is, which creature do I want to attack with? If I put the extra exalted counter, which, yeah, let's do that. I think we attack with the Slith. We get +4/+4. We don't need to spend energy to give it first strike because even a double block doesn't do anything. An opponent choosing to just throw away their Raptor rather than give me a +1/+1 counter. Emissary of Soulfire really kind of like showing why it's a house here. Very premium, uncommon in this set.
Yeah. I enjoy that card personally.
Well, also being a 1/4, it doesn't like just die to everything. Like that card's terrible for me. Oh look, they hit my 5-drop from my graveyard, my Satya from my hand, and flipped a spell. Who cares? That was awful. I hated everything about that. Also, my opponent should take my Satya here. They should take the Satya, they should play it, they should attack with it, and they should make another Crabomination. But fortunately for me, they don't do that, so I don't just die on the spot.
Oh, look, the land we needed.
A little late.
Yep.
I'm going to lose to this Crabomination.
Nah.
They get to reanimate it.
Utter insignificance.
And then what?
Oh, then they can block it because you don't have a flyer to go over with. Okay, yeah.
And then what do? Reanimate it with that quest right there. That costs a single black mana to reanimate a thing.
That hurts my soul.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, this game was going okay until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Crabomination hitting, unspeakable truths out of my graveyard and the Satya out of my hand was just miserable. Yep. It's dead. They still should have Satya'd it. They absolutely 100% should have. It's an enters the battlefield trigger. There's no world where drawing 3 is better than Crabominationing again. At least not in my opinion, but... Hey, look, there it is again. You can't have a card out of my hand this time.
Now we utter insignificance it.
Yeah, like... Oh, look, they hit my Unfathomable Truths again.
Why don't they get Satya?
Well, they can't now.
Oh, they can't now?
No.
Okay.
No.
I thought it was anything out of exile.
No, it's out of these 3 cards that they exiled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But, again, they hit my Unfathomable Truths from my graveyard, so they got to cast it again. They have drawn 6 cards off of my Unfathomable Truths.
Yeah, that kind of sits in anger a little bit.
I'm not angry, but I don't think I can win this game. Like, we have no resources. Our opponent has the board jammed up. We attack with this thing, and they just block with their Death Toucher. Like, nothing about this is good. They don't even have to block with the Death Toucher if they don't want to. They can just block with the Transmogrant and just block for forever because they can pay mana to get it back while they have all of these cards because they've drawn so many cards.
Off of your card.
Off of my card. Yeah, we're just sitting here probably dying. Honestly, best case scenario for me was them trading with the Death Toucher, because maybe I can figure out a way to get through this somehow. Any flyer and these exalted counters get to matter again, but getting rid of the guy with the activation that drain lives for 2 matters. Goodbye, Unicorn. Yeah, so opponent just sacrificed the Crabomination, which makes me sit here like they're gonna reanimate it again, aren't they? And that's just kind of.
A Demon Inferior.
Yep, sure do. It's a very good tempo card when you're ahead on tempo. I'm not. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say. Crabomination is a nigh unbeatable card, especially when it gets to do what it did for my opponent this game. I think I could grind through the other reanimates and everything, but, we're never getting through on the ground. They just have endless jump blockers.
Yeah, way too much to...
Yeah, here's this Transmogrant. Jump in front. They can bring it back from the graveyard if they want to. The good news, if there is any, is that I'm not under any pressure. They're not attacking me with anything either. So,
Yeah, it's because they know you're exalted is going to get real big real quick.
Well, also, they just don't have good attacks, right? What are they going to do? Attack a 2-1 into a 1-4?
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
So, this card being a sorcery absolutely sucks for me. We can't really attack first because they can just block and activate. If we pass the turn doing nothing, they just activate and draw 2 more cards. If we went to expel the unworthy, they just activate and draw 2 more cards. Although at least if we did that, we could have attacked with the Slith. So we probably were supposed to just expel, but I think at this point I'm like, well, they might get something that is more relevant than this giant 6/6 that's going to draw them 2 cards no matter what. I'm a little worried about this card because it lets them get more value. So I think my plan here was to expel the unworthy on the Quorum. And we draw another land, and I'm out of here. Get me out of here.
Yeah, it's time to move on.
Yeah. We have more games that we can play. We're so unlikely to win this one that I don't even want to bother. So yeah, that's unfortunately the end of the draft. We lost 2 in a row. So that's the 3rd loss, and we're KO'd from the event. We did get to 4 wins, so a more or less free draft.
Yeah, I mean, that's always good.
Always good. That last game, though, we got a little unlucky. Our opponent got a little lucky with what the Crabomination hit specifically.
That was rough. That was so bad.
And a combination of me being a little unlucky, our opponent getting a little lucky. And other than, like I said a couple times, I think copying the Crabomination with Satya is just more value than I ever could have handled, that they didn't need to draw 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because they can do that every turn until I find a way to deal with one or the other, the Satya or the Crabomination.
Okay.
And I think maybe they were thinking that they just want the value in their hand in case I do something. I don't know. For my money, I don't think that matters. Getting the second one because it's an ETB trigger for the Crabomination. The Satya is a 3/5. I have no good blocks that turn. So they get to attack with a 3/5. They get to attack with a 5/5. They get the ETB trigger again. Maybe they thought they had to pay the energy up front.
Yeah,
But Satya just tells them to sacrifice the token if they don't pay the energy.
Yeah, it could have been something as simple as a misreading.
Yeah, could be.
I've been in plenty of games where I'll just misread something and be like, I'm not fucking with that right now.
Yeah. But in any case, Jeremiah, thank you for joining me for this one.
Absolutely. I had fun.
All right. Well, have a good night, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.